What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the second of 3 different mid-year album lists that I'll be doing on this channel. If you want to check out the one I did for metal albums, it's right here. But today we're going to be doing a complete 180 and talking about all the awesome music that came out in the past 6 months that had nothing to do with heavy metal. And there was just so much of it for me. We could do a whole video on pop, whole video on hip-hop, whole video on alternative as well. So I'm definitely nursing a bit of a broken heart after putting this thing together because there were just so many albums that I wanted to include here that just didn't quite make it, and there's a bunch more that I just didn't get a chance to give, a review-worthy amount of in-depth listens. So please be sure to watch the end of this video for a list of honorable mentions and a list of albums that I've heard, but I just couldn't review them in good conscience because I haven't spent hours and hours with them. And it's always important to keep in mind that a list like this really boils down to personal taste, where I was at in my life, and all that shit. So if an album made this video in one form or another, it's probably worth hearing. And no, Kendrick Lamar's collection of B-sides is not eligible. Alright, with all that shit out of the way, let's get into it. Kicking things off at number 10 is Dangerous Woman by Ariana Grande. I am profoundly disturbed by my love of this album, but the ears want what the ears want. And on this thing, we kind of saw Ariana go from run-of-the-mill pop star to still pretty run-of-the-mill pop star with a better and more diverse platter of songs to sing. There's a little blues in the title track, of course some dance pop like on Into You, and then she hops on the reggae train for the Nicki joint. A bigger chunk of the songwriting comes from Max Martin this time around, including on far and away my favorite track, Sometimes, which is just this gorgeous blend of acoustic guitar with more synthetic sounds. And lyrically throughout this album, there's this calculated step up in edginess and in sexuality, and I really think that worked in Ariana's favor this time around. And beyond that, it's just a hell of a fun listen. Coming in at number 9 is Connecticut's own Apathy with Handshakes with Snakes. This is his 5th studio album, but he's an indie hip-hop veteran with projects well into the double digits. If you want to hear a seasoned MC spitting Nas and G-Rap influenced bars over some classic-sounding 90s boom-bap hip-hop production, this is the best album of the year that I have heard in that department. The track Pay Your Dues is one of my favorites. It's got this real slick Phil Collins sample, and Apathy's railing against entitled millennial SoundCloud rappers, which is real entertaining for me. And then Charlie Brown is another one that I love. It flips pretty much the most iconic, greatest cartoon theme song of all time, so it's definitely worth checking out. And then the track Moses, he gets a Twista and a Bun B feature, and both features are great, but ironically, Apathy can really carry this record by himself. So yeah, highly recommended for old school hip hop heads. Number 8, Chance the Rapper with the mixtape, coloring book, whatever the fuck mixtape really means in 2016, but like a lot of people, I really enjoyed this thing for its bright production and Chance's quirky brand of lyricism and his unabashed positivity and spirituality on a bunch of tracks. But however, unlike a fair amount of people, I did not dick ride this project because of how much I liked acid rap or how much I like what Chance represents to the industry. Sure, some of the best moments on Coloring Book are some of the most fresh and exciting moments in hip-hop this year. We're in agreement on that. But then, do not forget, there are a few blatantly mediocre tracks in this track listing, like Juke Jam with that uninspired feature from the Biebs, and then All Night, which basically just sounds like a slightly better version of Drake's One Dance. That being said, though, this thing is fucking awesome. I just wish people would see it as fucking awesome rather than perfect in my book. At number 7, we've got Pierce the Veil with Misadventures, which along with the Ariana record was definitely a huge surprise for me. Especially when you're really into metal, you tend to look at those verb the noun bands like Crown the Empire or Haste the Day or whatever as real cookie cutter shit. But this thing got so much hype that I never heard the band, I just went in cold, and I was so impressed with their tight and focused songwriting and their ability to so successfully infuse pop-punk melodies and rhythms into post-hardcore. It really had me thinking back to the genre's best moments like Rise Against Suffer and The Witness or AFI Sing the Sorrow. So definitely give this record a shot, even if you're like me and you tend to kind of gloss over music like this. The number 6 slot goes to Strange Little Birds from Garbage, 90s alt-rock legends that I had just gotten into in time for this record's release. I had completely fallen in love with their self-titled record, which, if you haven't heard, definitely give a listen. And Strange Little Birds does an outstanding job of adhering to the band's strengths while sounding dated exactly 0% of the time. I especially love the really in-your-face and overdriven guitar tone on this album. It makes these songs really crunchy at times, but then they're ultra melodic as well because of frontwoman Shirley Manson's undeniable ear for hooks. And then the album just weaves in and out of moods so effortlessly. Like if I look at my two favorite songs on here, Night Drive Loneliness and Magnetize. Night Drive Loneliness is a darker, brooding, like almost mid-90s Marilyn Manson vibe, and then Magnetize is this bright, like arena-ready song. So yeah, this record rules. If you've ever liked anything in the alt-rock realm, check it out. Beginning the second half of this list is Radiohead's A Moon-Shaped Pool, which is a super interesting record because, at least from my experience of it, it's such a specific type of listen. My average per diem listens of this record before 11 p.m. are like 0. And if you've heard the record, that'll make total sense. If you haven't heard it, it is a super depressing, super lonely, ultra neurotic experience, especially when you consider the lyrical content. But musically, it's tender, it's often jaw-droppingly beautiful, and I guess it especially caters to me because, as opposed to the last record, King of Limbs, this is a much more organic record instrumentally with drums and guitars that actually sound like they are performed live. And for my money, I'll take OK Computer Radiohead over Kid A Radiohead any day. It's just my taste. So I guess musically, this album caters to my taste, and lyrically, I guess it caters to the darker side of my psyche. Okay, number 4, the third studio album from Rittz, Top of the Line, the latest release from Tech Nine's Strange Music label. In terms of studio albums, Rittz, aka White Jesus, is 3 for 3 with me, and they just keep getting better and better and better. For my money, Top of the Line stands in stark contrast to Drake's Views record because the standard edition of this thing is 75 minutes long, yet you never find yourself kind of waiting for it to end like you do with Drake's fucking snooze fest. But Rittz has this incredible talent for combining super technical double time rapping with these huge glossy melodic choruses that he actually delivers himself. And on top of that, his song topics are just so personal and so moving, but they're never whiny or complaining. You know, he addresses topics like drug addiction and death and being cheated on and depression and all sorts of really fun, happy stuff. If there's one record on this list that I would really campaign for and make sure people checked out, it's this one. Top of the Line is amazing, Rittz is amazing, and it's time the rest of the world figured it the fuck out. Taking home the bronze is Lemonade by Beyonce. Heaps of praise out there for this one already that I'm going to try not to repeat, so let me just get to the point. I have never been a Beyonce fan because her albums have always been so singles driven. Like, even with all the hoopla surrounding the surprise release of her self-titled record, it's still an album that's largely just remembered for Drunken Love and Partition. But Lemonade feels like an album. Together, all these tracks manage to feel like a snapshot of her life. And a lot of the time, it's so intensely personal, which is something I almost always prefer in the music I listen to that's more lyric-centered. The nastier her marital problems get on this thing, the more engrossed I am as a listener. In a way, Lemonade is a lot of the time the type of album that Drake wishes he could make. Like, just listen to a song like Love Drought and tell me you don't think that Drizzy was just drooling when he heard that song. And another thing I'll say that I love about this album is just how, instead of opting for that ever-trendy trap sound the whole time, the production goes in a lot of different directions, so when the trap stuff does come, like on 6 Inch and like on Formation, it hits that much harder. And yeah, I'm not exactly being controversial when I say that this is the pop album of the year so far for me. At number 2, narrowly missing that number 1 slot, is Weezer with their self-titled White Album, their best album in God knows how long. It's a lean 35 minutes, 10 tracks of irresistible summer anthems that just yank you out of whatever shitty headspace you're in at the moment. I'll put it this way. If you don't enjoy a song like Girl We Got a Good Thing or King of the World, I'm not sure if I trust you. And getting the gold is Kanye West with The Life of Pablo. I think it definitely helped me that I avoided all the hype and purposely didn't sit down to listen to this thing at face value until early April. I am not a Kanye dick rider. I have eroded years off of my life arguing to people that my beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy is not a masterpiece. I didn't even necessarily have any expectations for this album because I didn't really like Yeezus. But cutting out all that contextual shit, the individual songs on the life of Pablo represent several career highs for Kanye that even top some material on his first 3 albums. Famous, Fuck My Life, Real Friends, Waves, Ultralight Beam. It goes on and on and on. And the guy pulls so many great performances out of so many different collaborators. It is incredible. The same reasons people criticize this album are the same reasons I love it. It's like getting caught in a pinball machine full of Kanye ideas that cover this endless spectrum, both musically and emotionally. It's not a perfect album by any means. There are definitely a few weak moments towards the end, but this is an album, more than any album on this list, that I could sit down with at any given time and just be completely engulfed in whacked out Kanye land for like an hour plus. Alright, there you have it. 10 awesome albums to check out from the past 6 months that are not metal albums. I really hope this video helps turn some people on to some great music. Be sure to stay tuned for some honorable mentions. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot me a message so we can continue to talk music. And I'll see you guys soon.
No phones inside the telly, pics inside the celly. Baby, you know the house rules. Yeah, respect over $1, death before dishonor. Partner, you know the house rules. If I'm up, you can't be down, and I'm down to tear shit up for you, homie. You know the house rules. Yeah, all bitches with flat stomachs, no cars under.